Ever considered just vanishing, disappearing from everyone's life, ghosting all your contacts, skipping every event, offering no explanations, simply retreating from the world for an entire year? Most people see that as running away, as a sign of weakness, something you do when you can't handle life. But Carl Jung discovered something completely different. He found that strategic withdrawal is one of the most powerful tools for transformation that exists. And modern neuroscience is finally able to explain why. Back in 1913, after his break with Freud, Jung did exactly that. He withdrew. He scaled back his clinical practice. He distanced himself from intellectual circles. He dove into what he would later call his confrontation with the unconscious, and he emerged years later with everything we know him for today: the archetypes, the shadow, individuation, the Red Book. Jung didn't make his greatest discoveries while he was connected. He found them while he was alone. And today, I'm going to explain exactly what happens when you vanish from everyone's life for a year. What changes in your brain, what shifts in your psyche, and why the person who returns is never the same as the one who left. Before we continue, I need you to understand the crucial difference between solitude and isolation, because confusing these two concepts can be the difference between transformation and destruction. Isolation is when you're forced to be alone, when circumstances separate you from people, when you feel excluded, rejected, abandoned. Isolation is painful because it wasn't chosen. Voluntary solitude is completely different. It's when you choose to withdraw, when you consciously decide that you need time away from the world, when you recognize that something within you needs space to emerge. Neuroscience treats these two states very differently. Research from Dr. K. Tai, a neuroscientist at the Salk Institute, shows that the brain processes forced isolation as a form of starvation. The same areas that activate when you're hungry for food activate when you're deprived of social contact. The substantia nigra and the ventral tegmental area fire signals that something essential is missing. But when solitude is voluntary, something different happens. The default mode network, the brain network associated with self-reflection and self-awareness, becomes more active. You start to process information differently. You start to make connections that you couldn't make before. You start to access parts of yourself that were hidden by the constant noise of social interactions. Jung understood this intuitively. He wrote that solitude doesn't come from not having people around. It comes from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. When you're surrounded by people who don't understand you, you can feel more alone than when you're actually by yourself. Strategic withdrawal inverts that dynamic. You remove the people who don't understand you. You remove the constant demands. You remove the noise. And in that silence, you finally get to hear yourself. Let me explain what happens in your brain during a year of voluntary withdrawal, because neuroscience has fascinating data on this. In the first few weeks, your brain enters a state of high alert. It's accustomed to constant social stimulation, texts, notifications, interactions. When that stops abruptly, the brain's reward system gets confused. You might feel anxiety, restlessness, even a form of withdrawal. A recent study published in Nature Communications in 2025 showed that social isolation alters the segregation of brain networks. The networks that normally operate separately start to mix in new ways. This might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's exactly what allows for deep reorganization. After the first few weeks, something starts to change. The brain starts to adapt. The constant urge to check messages diminishes. The need for external validation weakens. You start to develop what researchers call autonomous self-regulation, the ability to regulate your emotional state without depending on others. This is crucial because most people don't realize how much they rely on social interactions to regulate how they feel. A compliment makes you feel good. A criticism brings you down. Someone's attention validates you. Indifference hurts you. You're constantly outsourcing your emotional stability to others. When you disappear for a year, you're forced to develop internal sources of stability. You learn to validate yourself. You learn to calm yourself. You learn to find meaning without someone telling you that you matter. And those skills, once developed, remain with you, even when you return. Jung called this part of the process of individuation, the ability to be whole in yourself without needing others to complete you. He said that individuation doesn't isolate, it connects. But first, you need to become someone who can genuinely connect, instead of someone who connects out of desperation. There's a paradox here that few understand. The best way to improve your relationships is to spend time without any relationships, because you remove the desperate need that contaminates your connections. You stop seeking in others what only you can give yourself. Now I want to explain the 4 phases that every person goes through when they disappear for a year, because understanding this map can help you navigate the experience. The first phase is detoxification. It lasts approximately the first 4 to 6 weeks. It's when the noise of the world starts to leave your system. The voices of others in your head start to quiet down. The expectations that you carry without realizing start to reveal themselves. You start to realize how many of your thoughts aren't really your own, but echoes of what others have said. This phase is uncomfortable. You might feel empty. You might feel lost. You might question why you did this. But this discomfort is necessary. It's the process of removing layers that aren't yours, so you can finally see what's underneath. The second phase is confrontation. It lasts approximately from the 2nd to the 4th month. It's when you start to face parts of yourself that you were avoiding. Without social distraction, without the possibility of fleeing into the company of others, you're forced to sit with your demons. Jung was clear about the need for this phase. He said that no one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Prolonged solitude forces you to face your darkness. There's nowhere to run. There's no one to distract you from yourself. This is the most difficult phase. Many people give up here. They run back to the safety of superficial interactions. They prefer the noise to the silence that reveals uncomfortable truths. But if you can endure it, if you can push through that darkness, something extraordinary happens. The third phase is reconstruction. It lasts roughly from the 5th to the 8th month. This is when you start building a new version of yourself, not based on what others expect, not based on societal roles, but based on what you discovered in the confrontation. This phase is characterized by a clarity that most people never experience. You know what you want because you've removed all the voices that were telling you what you should want. You know who you are because you've removed all the masks you wore for others. You know what matters because you've removed all the distractions that were hiding what was essential. Jung called this phase of the alchemical process albedo, the whitening that comes after the blackening. It's the moment when light begins to enter after the darkness of confrontation. It's when you start to see with new eyes. During this phase, something fascinating happens in the brain. Research shows that prolonged periods of reflection and solitude alter the connectivity between brain regions. New connections form between areas that don't normally communicate. It's as if the brain is reconfiguring itself to operate in a different way. Huberman speaks extensively about how neuroplasticity requires certain conditions to function: urgency, focus, and adequate sleep. Voluntary solitude creates exactly those conditions. You have urgency because you're confronting fundamental questions about your existence. You have focus because there are no distractions. and you can sleep adequately because there are no social demands disturbing your rhythm. The fourth phase is integration. It lasts roughly from the 9th to the 12th month. This is when you start preparing your return, but not a return to what was before. A return as someone different, someone who has passed through the fire and emerged transformed. This phase is delicate. You're between two worlds, the internal world you built in solitude and the external world to which you're about to return. The temptation is to abandon everything you've learned and simply revert to old patterns. But that would be wasting all the work. Integration requires that you take what you've learned with you, that you maintain the boundaries you've established, that you preserve the clarity you've gained, that you protect the version of yourself that emerged from the silence. Now, I want to explain something that Jung discovered about the return, because returning is just as important as leaving. Jung said that individuation is not a process of permanent isolation. It's a process of becoming whole so that you can connect in a genuine way. You don't disappear to escape the world. You disappear to find yourself, and then you return, bringing with you the gold you found in the dark. But the return is shocking. You've changed. The world hasn't changed. People expect to find who you were, and you're not that person anymore. This creates a friction that can be painful. Some people won't recognize who you've become. Some will resist your change. Some will try to pull you back to who you were because that version was more comfortable for them. You'll need to make difficult choices about which relationships to keep, about which to let go, about how to navigate a world that wants to fit you back into boxes that you've outgrown. But here's the truth that few understand. The relationships you lose because you've changed were relationships you should lose. They were based on a version of you that wasn't real. They were based on masks, on performances, on who you pretended to be. The relationships that survive your transformation are the real ones. They are the ones where the person loves you for who you genuinely are, not for who you pretended to be. These relationships become deeper after your return because you can finally connect for real. Now let me explain to you what neuroscience says about the long-term effects of a year of voluntary solitude. Studies show that social homeostasis, the balance of social connections that the brain seeks, can be recalibrated through periods of conscious isolation. It's like resetting a thermostat. You were accustomed to needing a constant amount of external validation. After a year alone, you need much less. This doesn't mean you become antisocial. It means you become selective. You no longer need any interaction to feel good. You can choose interactions that really matter. You can say no without guilt. You can be alone without desperately missing company. Dr. K. Tai, whose research I mentioned before, discovered that there's a kind of solitude neuron in the brain. These neurons in the dorsal raphe nucleus fire when we are deprived of social contact, creating an unpleasant sensation that pushes us back into society. But here's what's fascinating. These neurons can be trained through voluntary solitude and conscious reflection. You can alter how they respond. You can learn to be alone without these neurons firing alarm signals. You can find peace in the silence. This doesn't happen overnight. It requires time. It requires practice. It requires the kind of prolonged immersion that a year of withdrawal offers. But once it happens, you gain a freedom that most people never experience. The freedom of not needing others to feel complete. There's something else I need to tell you about this process, about what happens to your creativity during a year alone. Jung noted that his periods of greatest creative output coincided with his periods of greatest solitude. The Red Book, his most profound work, was created during years of withdrawal. The ideas that defined his legacy emerged from the silence. Neuroscience confirms this. The default mode network, which becomes more active during solitude, is intimately linked to creativity. When you stop processing constant external stimuli, the brain begins to make internal connections. Ideas that were fragmented begin to come together. Insights that were hidden begin to emerge. Many people say they want to be creative, but they never give the brain the space it needs to create. They're constantly consuming messages, news, social media, conversations. The brain never has time to process and synthesize. It never has enough silence to hear the ideas that are trying to be born. A year alone changes this. You give your brain what it needs to create: space, silence, time, and what emerges may surprise you. There's something else that neuroscience has recently discovered about the effects of voluntary solitude, something that changes how we understand this process. Research from the University of St. Andrews in 2024 shows a direct link between social isolation and cognitive decline. People who are socially isolated have a 31% higher risk of developing dementia. This seems to contradict everything I'm saying, but here's the crucial detail. These studies measured forced isolation, people who didn't choose to be alone, people who were abandoned, excluded, marginalized. That kind of solitude is toxic because it carries the pain of rejection. Voluntary solitude is completely different. When you choose to withdraw, your brain processes the experience in the opposite way. Instead of activating threat and rejection circuits, it activates circuits of exploration and discovery. Instead of shrinking, the brain expands. A UC San Diego study showed that people who participated in a meditation retreat of just 7 days showed measurable changes in the brain and metabolism. Imagine what happens in a year. Imagine the depth of transformation when you dedicate real time to inner work. The key is intention. You're not running from something. You're going towards something. You're not avoiding life. You're diving into it in a way that modern society doesn't allow. You're doing something that should be normal, but has become radical. Our ancestors had access to solitude in ways that we've lost. They spent time alone in nature. They had periods of reflection as a natural part of life. The spiritual traditions of every culture include retreats, solitary vigils, periods of silence. We've lost that. We're constantly connected, constantly stimulated, constantly distracted, and then we wonder why we feel empty, why we feel lost, why we don't know who we are. The answer is that we never have time to find out. We never have enough silence to hear the answer. We never have enough space for the true self to emerge. A year alone corrects this. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity that we've forgotten existed. There's also a spiritual aspect that Jung recognized, even though he was a scientist. He realized that prolonged solitude often leads to experiences that transcend normal psychology. Experiences of connection with something larger. Experiences of profound meaning. Experiences that mystics of all traditions describe. This isn't magic. It's what happens when you remove all the noise and allow deeper parts of the psyche to manifest. Parts that are normally muffled by the constant noise of the world. Parts that carry wisdom you didn't even know you had. Jung called this the encounter with the self. The self in Jung's theory is not the ego. It's something larger. It's the true center of the psyche, which includes the conscious and the unconscious. It's the totality of who you are. Many people describe experiences of profound clarity during periods of retreat, moments where everything makes sense, moments of peace that seem to come from outside of them, moments of certainty about their path and purpose. These experiences are real. They're the result of finally giving space for the self to manifest. Now, I want to give you some practical guidance on how to make this withdrawal. Because intention is important, but execution determines the result. First, do it consciously. Don't disappear without warning as a way to punish people or run away from problems. Communicate in some way that you're withdrawing, that you need time, that you'll be back. This removes the drama and allows you to focus on the inner work. Second, create structure. Solitude without structure can become chaos. Establish routines, schedules for waking up, for reflecting, for moving, for creating. The brain needs rhythm to function well. The structure keeps you anchored while you explore unknown internal territories. Third, practice active reflection. It's not enough to just be alone. You need to use the solitude. Write, meditate, question, examine your patterns, your beliefs, your shadows. Passive solitude just bores you. Active solitude transforms you. Huberman talks about how writing activates different brain areas than simply thinking. When you put into words what you're discovering about yourself, you consolidate that knowledge. You make conscious what was unconscious. You create a record that you can revisit. Fourth, take care of the body. The temptation during solitude is to neglect the physical, stop exercising, eat poorly, sleep irregularly. But the body is the foundation upon which psychological transformation happens. If the body suffers, the mind cannot process. Huberman consistently emphasizes that sleep, exercise, and nutrition are the fundamental pillars. Without them, neuroplasticity doesn't work right. The insights that you have don't consolidate. The transformation stays superficial. Fifth, don't be afraid of the emptiness. There will be times when you won't feel anything happening. Moments of boredom, moments of emptiness, moments when you'll question why you're doing this. These moments are part of the process. Don't run from them. Sit with them. The emptiness is where new possibilities are born. Jung was clear about the need to endure the emptiness. He said that the anxiety and boredom we feel when alone are signs that we're avoiding something. The work is to discover what we're avoiding. And the only way to discover it is by remaining in the discomfort until it reveals its secret. Now I want to tell you about who you become after a year alone, because that person is different in ways you can't imagine until you go through the experience. The person who emerges has a quality of presence that others feel. You're no longer scattered among 1,000 distractions. You're no longer seeking validation in every interaction. You're present, whole, there. People notice this. Even without knowing what has changed, they feel it. You become more interesting, more magnetic, more real, not because you're trying to impress, but because you're finally yourself. Your relationships change. You stop tolerating superficiality, stop participating in social games, stop pretending interest in what doesn't interest you. You become selective, and that selectivity attracts people who value authenticity. Your clarity increases. The decisions that seem difficult become obvious. You know what you want because you've removed all the external voices that confused you. You know what matters because you've spent enough time with yourself to find out. Your fear diminishes, not because you've become invulnerable, but because you've weathered the worst that solitude can throw at you. And you've survived. You've discovered that you can trust yourself, that you don't need others to feel secure. This discovery changes everything. There's also a transformation in how you process time. Before strategic withdrawal, time felt fragmented, pieces of attention scattered between texts, meetings, social obligations. Time never felt truly yours. After a year alone, you develop a different relationship with time. It becomes something you inhabit rather than something you try to control. You stop rushing. You stop feeling behind. You stop feeling like there's never enough time. This happens because subjective time is shaped by attention. When your attention is fragmented, time seems to pass quickly and emptily. When your attention is integrated, when you're present in each moment, time expands. A year of solitude teaches you to be present in a way that constant social life simply doesn't allow. There's something else Jung discovered about this process, something that most people don't understand. He said that individuation, the process of becoming whole, isn't a selfish path. It's a path that benefits everyone. When you become more real, you contribute to the collective consciousness. When you integrate your shadows, you stop projecting them onto others. When you heal yourself, you help to heal the world. The world doesn't need more fragmented people trying to complete themselves through others. The world needs whole people who can genuinely connect. People who aren't desperate. People who can love without needing to be loved in return. People who can give without needing to receive. A year of strategic withdrawal brings you closer to being that person. Not because solitude is the goal, but because solitude is the path to the wholeness that allows true connection. Jung had a phrase that perfectly captures this. He said that individuation doesn't isolate, it connects. Seems contradictory. How can stepping away help you connect better? The answer lies in the quality of the connection. Before solitude, you connected from neediness. You needed others to feel good. You needed validation to feel worthy. You needed company so you wouldn't feel alone. This need-based connection is fragile, it's dependent, and it's easily broken. After strategic withdrawal, you connect from choice. You don't need others, you choose them. You don't seek validation, you offer it. You don't run from solitude through company. You embrace it and then choose to share. This choice-based connection is stronger, more authentic, more durable. It's the kind of connection that truly satisfies, that truly fulfills, that truly matters. Have you ever thought about disappearing for a year? Have you ever felt the call to withdraw from the world and find yourself? Comment below. Tell us if you've ever done it. Tell us what you discovered. Tell us who you became. When you share your experience, you inspire others who are thinking about doing the same. And if this video helped you understand the power of strategic withdrawal, consider supporting this work. The Super Thanks button down below is a way to participate. It's a conscious exchange between people who value depth. Jung spent years alone and emerged with the tools that we still use to understand the human mind. Solitude wasn't his weakness. It was his strength. It was the crucible where his gold was forged. Maybe you need the same. Maybe the world is calling you to withdraw. Maybe the voice you're trying to silence is the voice that needs to be heard, and it can only be heard in silence. The person who disappears for a year isn't the same one who returns, and maybe that's exactly the transformation you need. Until the next video, and remember, sometimes the most courageous way to find yourself is to disappear, not to escape, but to finally have the space to be who you really are. This is your journey. This is your transformation, and it begins when you decide to withdraw.